Hmm? Ah!
How will I know who he is?
This is him.
Sorry. Fork.
Amy.
I don't know, your name's not Fork.
Yeah, I guessed. It's just,
Oh, it's Frank. Do you want to sit? Should we sit?
I think it's that'll stand. Yeah, come on.
Come sit, yeah. Oh, that's, I was on that side.
Oh, shall I?
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. Why bring it up? Sorry, I'm so bloody nervous. It's my first time on the, with the system.
Me too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm shitting it, mate.
Come to mention it, you do look terrified.
Do I?
Yeah, you're quaking with fear.
Well, maybe shaking with revulsion?
At least you stopped shitting.
Are you sure about that?
Should we stop talking about shitting now?
Yeah, maybe order some food. Yeah, good plan.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Rima.
Hey, and I'm Shawn.
And this is Strange Indeed, a podcast dedicated to the show Black Mirror.
Today we'll be covering the 4th episode from Black Mirror Season 4 titled Hang the DJ, Hang the DJ.
Keep saying it. Oh my gosh, I'm excited to jump into our top 5 with this one because didn't we need this one?
Oh my god, like this... When I watched this one, I watched it while I was working out one day because there's the last 2 episodes I wasn't super excited about, so I'm kind of like, okay, like I'll just start watching this and see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like I stopped working out and watch this because this is by far not only one of my favorite episodes from Black Mirror, but probably one of my favorite like written shows of all time.
Oh wow, that's some high praise.
Oh my gosh, this was such a beautifully written, like, oh, I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to talk about it for a long time.
I'm excited to talk about it too. So why don't we jump into our top 5? And I'm going to go first because I'm that excited to talk about it. I'm just going to mow you over and just start with my top 5. So my number 5 is The First Date. And of course, I mean, between our favorite couple here that is so centric. I really liked that they... Like we see Frank and it's kind of in the dark and he has no idea what to expect. And you see him talk into this handheld device about where he needs to go. You see when she walks into the room and how I could have forgotten her name. I didn't have it written down here. But she, they meet each other and they both have like that look of excitement and they have like this instant like chemistry attraction and you can really see it in their faces. I thought their performances were really great. They hit it off with their light banter. They sit down and they're, kind of laughing about this and laughing about that, about, checking out their expiration date. They get a little bummed when they see they only have 12 hours, but they have some cute light banter. The only thing that I was thinking, because I was kind of the same with you, it wasn't that I wasn't into it, but it's like I'm always waiting for something to turn, because it is Black Mirror after all, right? I mean, there's so many things that go wrong in these episodes that we can't have such a happy thing happen, right? So when they start asking if like, oh, are we allowed to share the food? It almost seemed a little ominous because they're kind of looking around like, is anybody watching? And the one dude up by the, standing several feet away, kind of like at the bar or whatever, and he's kind of looking at them as they're, sharing their little bites of food. And I'm like, why would they not be allowed to share food? Or, so it made me question why they couldn't do that. And that's when I started to kind of pick up that something wasn't quite right about where they were. I didn't know that it was what it was that we found out later. But like with the driverless golf carts, it had me believing just a little bit that something was a little bit off. But like I said, this is Black Mirror. The show can be futuristic and a little bit off at times. So it didn't seem too far-fetched, this whole situation. And I really, really loved, just to kind of bring that around, their first date I loved how they just held hands the whole night. And I'm just going to be a big old girl about it and just say, aw.
No, like I've got a number on here. It's like the romantic moments.
Yeah.
And I titled them like romantic as fuck because that's what that was. Like it's their first date, know, and like you always want to capture that moment. Like if you could put like in a capsule, like the first time I met my wife, like that's what I would want to like just those feelings and everything. And
Oh,
they're like, oh,
Shawn.
well, should we like well, we only have 12 hours, so we don't have to have sex. And they're just laying there in bed, and there's that just those sparks are going, and like both their hearts would have been racing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just all you can do just to hold each other's hands, and it's just like you fall asleep that way, and it's just like like that. I think that was the moment I stopped working out, and I'm like, oh, put my hands in my arms, and I'm like, I wish my wife was here right now because she was out of town. I think that that at that moment, and I'm like,
Oh.
oh,
And you just wanted to hold her hand?
I did.
Oh, Shawn, you big old softy. I hope after you record this, you go say that to your wife and you go hold her damn hand because
Oh,
that to me was almost as intimate as having sex,
well,
right?
not jumping too far ahead. I mean, like this was like right after the episode ends. Like I sent her a text, and then after I watched it a second time, I went up to her and like it's a show. It's an episode like this that's just like it's like watching. I don't know if you ever watched This Is Us on NBC.
I'm familiar but haven't watched. I know, bad me.
Oh, I mean that's one of those shows that like after you watch it, like you just want to like hold your significant other because like it's a very like at least the first season was very realistic, especially like if you're just having kids and kind of you're just married, like it kind of goes the gamut. And it was the same thing like most of these. Like I walk up and I tell her like I really just want like this is a show that I just want to sit down and watch with her because she's not a big TV person.
Mm-hmm.
And I love whenever like episodes and stuff like this can just like make you want to do that. Like, there's shows that are funny, like, oh, I gotta watch this with my best friend. And this is one of those that's like, oh, I just want to sit down with my significant other and like just have this like moment and these feelings together watching this unfold.
Oh.
I kind of hijacked your number 5, but
No, you were going right into it. That was perfect. That was way better than what I said. That's so sweet. Aw, such a big old softy. You better go say all that to your wife whenever you're done recording tonight. Go
I'm
let
gonna
her
make
know
sure she
how much.
listens to this episode.
No, you just go tell her. Don't say, here, honey, listen to this. Just go tell her.
But it
Oh,
was
that's super sweet.
like you're saying when they first showed up, like it seemed kind of, I mean, because this was an episode I think a lot of people had heard about. It was like, oh, well, there's this like this thing that like basically times how long you can date. It's like speed dating but on steroids. I'm like, okay. And as they first show up, like you said, they had that chemistry. And I wasn't sure at first until my second viewing, but I was like, was this their first date? And they mentioned like this is their very, very first time doing this thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like whenever you're dating in like high school or like your first girlfriend, it's like, well, I mean, like, is this like, I mean, I really like you, but like, should I really jump right in on the first one? Like, should I, at least see what else is out there to see if I can find my match? And
Right.
that's kind of the gist I got from this bit is like, oh, okay, they're just making sure they can play the field, make sure that, they have different options, and then that's how it figures out their best match.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking it was some sort of like because there's tons of dating apps like Match.com or something, and I'm not promoting it or anything, people. I'm just naming one because that's what came to my head. But I thought, oh, they're part of some sort of futuristic. It's not quite an app. Obviously, it's much more involved or whatever than just an app on the phone. Clearly, there's a lot more going on. But I thought, oh, it's some sort of like dating program, like you said, like a speed dating thing, and you're immersed into this thing. I thought it was real, that's for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it was so the first time I watched it, I didn't realize they were walled in. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole time they're going to like these houses and stuff like that, I'm like, well, what are they going to do for like their day jobs? Like, I got to go to work at some point. And it wasn't until like the end of the episode where they were trying to escape this place. I'm like, oh, okay, they're walled in and like they're just here like an experiment. They can't get away. And we've seen that with other Black Mirror episodes where, it's kind of like, we can't go past these walls or we can't do this thing. Like we're kind of isolated. But the other, so one of the other moments is kind of from their first date that I thought was super, super romantic was, and this again goes back to like when you're first dating somebody or when you're first with somebody and you're not living with them because unfortunately I think when you live with somebody, you kind of take each other for granted to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not that you mean to, but it's just, every day is, it's just kind of like you're trying to get through the day instead of like when you first meet somebody or when you're not living with them, it's more of a like a experience to go see them. And as their time ended and they're walking to their separate cars, they held hands like up to the last moment.
I
Even
know.
after the time finished, like they're still holding hands as they're like touching hands as long as they can until they have to leave. And like, those are moments that you remember. Like I remember with my wife, she was leaving the car as I was dropping her off, like holding her hand as long as I could as she could get out of the car, or, holding her hand as long as I could till I got out of the house. And, there's times where it's just like, it just very, very seemed like a very like realistic thing that would happen with like people that had these like emotions for each other early on.
Right. Oh, I'm just gonna sigh this whole time. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna have anything productive to say. Just gonna go, oh, or like that one guy did.
I've got that. I've got notes on that too. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. You can't not think about that or bring it up because, hey. So was that all of your number 5? Anything else you want to say?
So for my number 5, I just kind of really had like futuristic love story.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we don't really see I guess like whenever you think of sci-fi or futuristic, you don't see a lot of like love story type stuff. And this one is like, even without the twist of it being a simulation, it still had a lot of, very futuristic things. It's like, okay, well, this could be some type of world where, instead of trying to waste time with dating, they try to, use this thing to keep you in for a couple of years to, find your perfect match. So that way, you don't have to go through the minutia of all that stuff. And then, because maybe, we're so super logically or technologically advanced. It's like, we just do this. So instead of college and all this, you just come here, you find your mate, and then you move on.
Right.
But it's one of those things that like, it's almost Romeo and Juliet. It's like, even though these rules are putting us down, like, it's like, fuck the rules, fuck this place. Let's just get over the wall. Let's just be together. And I just love that, like, very, like, again, like, you don't see that often, this like futuristic like love story, and that's what it really was.
I know, you're so right. It's always about like the technology focused or just more sci-fi centric, and you just don't get a lot of romance type things in sci-fi. So that's a really good point. I don't know that I've ever, because I love sci-fi and stuff, and I don't know that I've ever, maybe I'm getting my romantic needs met from other shows and I don't have to have it in my sci-fi, but it fits so beautifully in this episode and was written so well.
I don't remember if Charlie Brooker was the only writer on this, but this is an episode that I don't know if I fully understood Charlie Brooker as being the writer of this, because I'm gonna apologize up front. I'm really bad at looking at writers and directors of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But this was one, like, right when the episode ends and it says written by Charlie Brooker, like, I went out and like, oh, he wrote all these episodes. And then I went out and found him, like, made like a point to be like, dude, this was like one of the most beautifully written things I have ever seen. Kudos to you, sir, because this was awesome.
Yeah, I know that he either writes them or he's always like co-writing as far as how involved he is. And see, I know it was written by Charlie Brooker, directed by Tim Van Patten.
Credited by, and I know he sometimes co-writes with other people too.
But. Yeah. Sometimes the oh gosh, this is horrible that I can't think of her name either. But his like co-showrunner, they'll do episodes together, or else he does all of them. But he's always in there somewhere, whether it's alone or whether he does it with somebody. And it looks like he's the only one with the writing credit that I'm looking at. So kudos to you, Charlie Brooker.
Yeah, so my number 5 is just that futuristic love story.
And what a great one. Good number 5. And very good point. I love that. We need more. Take heed, people. Take after this episode. And I don't want to say too much, but there's another episode from last season that's really similar. And I think a lot of people were making a lot of comparisons to, how uplifting and how different like this one, Hang the DJ was, and then another episode that stands out, very similar to this, that's a little bit different from what you normally see from Black Mirror. So Very good. And I don't know how they determine, because this is an anthology. So clearly the episodes don't have to go in order. So I don't know what they do when they make these episodes and then they decide, okay, which one are we releasing first and then second and third and then what order? Because like I said, I don't know what other episode could have helped me more after watching episode 3 Crocodile than, than watching this one, Hang the DJ, because I was like, there's still hope in the world.
It's well placed right there in the middle for sure.
It is. It definitely. I'm maybe a little bit worried about, maybe it's going to go down from here. I haven't seen the other episodes yet. And I don't think it's going to go down in a bad way. I just think as far as like the high of like leaving you feeling good,
Yeah, like an emotional, like it's like the roller coaster. Like we're getting really high up, like, oh my gosh, like this futuristic world's great. You're just waiting for that crocodile collapse.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for to go back down into the deep despair of Black Mirror that we're so used to being familiar with. So anyway, so my number 4 is the system. So the system, I don't know that there was ever really a name for it. I know that like they talked to the coach. That's who they would, hey coach, they would talk into this thing. And, trying to figure out and understand the process and exactly what it was doing. It was gathering info from you and about you and helping you to get the perfect match. And it was funny because, they're holding these little handheld devices. And I don't know how familiar you are with Alexa or like the Alexa Echo Dot or whatever. But
I don't have one, but I've seen them, and my in-laws have one. Yeah,
so it reminded me very much of that, how, you talk into this thing, it's talking back to you. It's got the light that lights up. 'Cause I have one and it lights up really similar. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like Alexa. And of course, every time I said Alexa, she was like beeping like, hello, what do you want? So it got very confusing there for a while and kind of started to freak me out. But it seems, initially like a good idea, right? Send you out on lots of dates, kind of forcing you in a way, because some people, myself included, I think need to be pushed just a little bit because it's like, oh, no, that's not for me. I'm too shy, or I don't know what to say to people, or I don't, it's not comfortable for me. But I think that's kind of good, is to get you out of your comfort zone, and kind of forcing you to do that. So, and I like I don't know that I agreed so much, like what was the point of the long-term things. But I could see like she had lots of like 3-day, like what was it, 36-hour dates and stuff.
36 hours, yeah.
So I thought, well, that's not so bad. I mean, you don't really get to know someone in a day. Like she had, Amy and Frank only had the 12 hours initially when they first on their first date, but I could see like the 36-hour thing that gives you time to spend, a little bit of time with someone, talk to someone, get to know someone, can you get along? Do you completely despise each other? And that seems great. So I thought at first it seemed like a really great system, but then I started to question it when you see it go, along, between, their different dates and stuff in different scenarios. So what did you think about the system and what it was doing?
It was very interesting at first. I had questions about, it takes a lot of the awkwardness out of dating.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of times whenever like you go on that first date with somebody, I had a date when I was like 25, like when I was more of an adult. So it's always weird to, at least it felt more weird to be like, oh, we're going on like a high school date, but I'm like, I'm a professional now and I'm not living at home with my mom and dad. It just felt really weird. But, like this, like you go out, like the food's already chosen for you, so you don't have to worry about picking any food. You don't have to worry about restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of get past the awkwardness of like, oh, well, are you going to come inside? Can you kiss goodnight? Like what's going on? It seemed like this, like they, you didn't have to, but it seemed like the system was really set to be like, hey, even though it's only 36 hours, you guys should bang. That's what you guys need to do. Because even that one dude's like, usually I find it, easier just to have sex right away.
Icebreaker. Yeah.
Yeah. And even she like, it seemed like, I feel bad for Frank, because Frank, I think, only had like 1 or 2 other relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he gets back with Amy, she's like, oh my God, like, I've just had so many short, like, it's basically like if you meet a girl that like had like a really crazy college experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I just had this out of body experience. I'm sitting over here and there's just this dick just going in and out, in and out. He's like, oh, wow. Like, Yeah, I was basically miserable for a whole year. So
Yeah.
that's fun.
They definitely had some different experiences. I think we definitely saw a little bit more of hers than what we did of his. I think we saw a little bit, but I think we saw like in the montage that they had later of
And
the
they gave
different
her all
mates.
kinds of experiences too, like all different kinds of dudes. There's a lady thrown in there. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, we don't know, but you might check the side of the ball field and see if you're game.
Well, like I said, it's like getting you out of your comfort zone. I don't know if she was of that persuasion or not. I mean, it was never really mentioned. You just saw that there was an option there, that something happened, but yeah, get you out of your comfort zone. Maybe you try it, maybe you'll like it, I don't know.
I mean, can't it be worse than the dude she was with?
No kidding.
Let's
So that's my number 4. It's just basically in general with that, because I'll probably get into it a little bit more in depth about the situation and things that situations they were placed in, but just in general about the system itself. So
I like it.
yeah, what's your number 4?
So my number 4, I touched on a few of them, but it's basically like the romantic moments that came out of this. And so I'll try and hit some of the ones I have. And I put them down as romantic AF moments.
Let me
There's a
let me get the
ton in here.
tissues. Let me get the tissues. Gonna make me
Let's
cry.
see. So the big ones was like the second time around. So like as they're sitting there getting this dinner, because they basically had all these relationships, and he just came out of a really shitty one,
Yeah.
and they get back together, and they're sitting there, and it's like like I think like as a dude you kind of have those feelings of like, I kind of relate to Frank a little bit. It's like this is too good to last. Like I think it's like it's as a dude you're like, I'm gonna fuck this up somehow. Like this chick is perfect. I'm gonna fuck it up. Again, I'll probably like say a lot of like, because I really felt connected to this episode because it kind of spoke to me like a lot of the things I've been through. And I know with my wife, I've told her like the very first time I ever saw her was across the room at like this party, and I saw her, but she didn't see me. And my roommate at the time was kind of flirting with her, and I remember seeing her and being like, "That is a chick that is way out of my league." And we just happened to run into each other again at like another little like social gathering, and we chit chatted, and we finally decided to go on like a little date, and really hit it off. And so it's very much kind of like the whole time I'm like, man, this chick's like way out of my league. Like I'm gonna fuck this up somehow, and I didn't, which is good. But I kind of feel like Frank kind of had a lot of those feelings in this episode, and that goes back to like when they met for the second time. And it's like she's like, listen, let's not check what the expiration date. Let's just break the rules. Let's like let's make a deal and not even do it. Which is one. I mean, like you're breaking the system. You're saying fuck the system. We're gonna just do what we want to do. And like their banter back and forth is just super super cute. So like as they're getting ready to get back in the room, for the second time they're back together, and she's like, all right, well let's do this. It's like maybe one of us should get naked first. And she's sitting there, she's like, I'm gonna see your dick. And it's like people who like I think genuinely care and love each other, that's the kind of stuff that like at least that's the kind of stuff that my wife and I do, like joking around,
teasing each other. Yeah,
exactly. And then like the embrace moment. So finally he's like he tries to like combat it a little bit, but then they just like have that embrace of like, I've been waiting so long for this moment that it's finally gonna happen. And you get to see the montage of like their time together. And unfortunately, he messes it up by looking at the time on there.
He did.
But again, like the notes I have with that is the fact that it's, I feel like that's a dude that's like, I'm going to fuck this up. And he's trying to figure out like, okay, like how much time do I have left? Because I know this can't last forever.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's, I think initially at first their decision to like, let's not look. Let's just not look. Let's just enjoy it. But then how do you know when the time is up? Does a beeper go off? Or, I mean, did you hear it start to count down if you don't look? I was curious. I don't know if that ever got explained, that if you don't look,
I think if
how
you
do you
don't
know?
look, your time doesn't start. So if you don't look at it, you're just infinitely in that pre-expiration date time.
Oh, really?
That's the way I kind of took it, because I think the 5 years when he looked was like starting right then, it would be 5 years. But before it was kind of infinite time. And I think that was.
See,
this is one.
My head was up in the clouds with all this. I was all going, "Oh," the whole time. that was right over me.
Well, and I think what would happen in that is, so if like, if they would have done that for so long, like maybe the guard people would have came, because it seemed like at the end of this simulation, it was whenever somebody tried to buck the system is when it considered that that's your perfect match.
Right.
So like in this situation, if they never would have looked, I'm guessing like somebody would have came and like tried to stop them somehow, and that's when they would have made their escape. Because I would have loved to see like other simulations, because I'm sure like you'd probably have the reverse of it where she was in a bad relationship and then he was like sleeping around all over the place, and then they finally get back together, and then they make a run for it somehow. But there's 1,000 stories in this one episode that we'll never. Well, there's 999 stories in this episode that we'll never know.
I know. I wanted to see, I mean, gosh, they just need to make a bunch more episodes so we can see these other simulations.
Hang the DJ, episode 1. Hang the DJ, episode 2.
Hang the DJ, episode 755. And we get to see all of them.
So I've got 2 more romantic moments. So the other one I thought was super cute. It was right before he actually looked at the time, is when they're sitting on the couch. She's like napping in his lap.
Yeah.
And he has just that look at her. And it's one of those things, again, like you get in the minutia, you get in the day-to-day, and you kind of take that for granted. But then there's just sometimes where like you can actually stop and you kind of can block out everything in the world, and you look down like at your significant other and you're just like, I'm really, really lucky. And usually it never fails. The other person isn't in that mushy mood, and so they look up, it's like, what are you looking at? What'd you do? Did you just fart? That's what you did, isn't it? You just farted. I'm trying to nap in your lap and you farted. It's like, no, I just love you. What do you want? Nothing. I just love you.
So why can't you just let me say I love you and stop being so suspicious about it?
Okay, I did fart, but it was an accident. That was like 10 minutes ago. And then the last one is the moment is they like find out that it's like, okay, I'm getting matched up tomorrow, and they decide to kind of break the rules, and so they meet at the table because they can meet one more person, and they're both just like, I want you, like you're the person I want. And they're like, just fuck it. I don't care what's over that wall. It's better than spending the rest of my life with anybody but you. Like, I'll take my chances out there with you. And again, it's very Romeo and Juliet. It's very like, it's just Romeo and Juliet. It's a story that's been told throughout history, but you get to actually see it unfold. So just kind of a list of different ones. That's my number 4, is just kind of the romantic moments.
I love that you have just a list of romantic moments in your top 5, because I'm the girl and I don't have a list of the romantic moments.
So I don't know if this is telling of what the kind of person I am, but years ago I went to get my hair cut, and I don't remember what the girl was talking about. Is it like sports clips? So it's like a sports themed haircut place.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
And the girl says something like, "Oh, I'm really excited to see the new Gerard Butler movie coming out." I'm like, "Who's that?" And she's like, "Oh, he's the guy from 300. I'm like, "Oh, you mean the dude from P.S. I Love You?" And she's like, "That's very interesting that you would say that movie and I would say 300.
It is, but I love it. Oh,
although
your wife's so lucky.
I won't go down the side rant, but I really did not like P.S. I Love You.
Oh, well.
But we'll leave that there.
Yeah, we don't have to go into that. That's okay, because you had it listed romantic moments, and that will just forever be recorded, and we'll always have that, if nothing else. You don't have to love everything. All the chick. Look, I'm not a chick flick girl. Okay, I'm an action. I know Gerard Butler from 300 more than P.S. I Love You. So I'm an action movie chick. I like blowing shit up. I like fast cars, and I like things that happen that would normally happen in real life as far as action movies. I'm not a chick flick kind of girl. So I'm cool with that. That's super awesome. What a great, great number 4. So that's going to take me into my number 3. We're going to go a little bit more of a deeper dive into some of what happened, and that's the other dates. So first of all, how awful was that other girl that he had to date for like a year?
Yeah, that's my number 3, is just completely Frank's second date.
I mean, what a hag. I mean, to go from, granted, they only had 12 hours together, him and Amy, but what an amazing 12 hours. I mean, they totally hit it off, had all this chemistry, really were into each other, didn't want to say goodbye, had to. And I kept thinking, is there like a shooting range around somewhere, or some sort of like, what's going to happen to them if they decide not to, which I guess we saw at the end. But that's what I was thinking at that time. You know, in the beginning, before we knew, I'm like, gosh, why? Why aren't you allowed to see each other again? Clearly you're hitting it off. And then when he saw that the expiration date, like they had a year together, and I was like, why? What was the point? I guess, like I said, maybe my head was in the clouds so much watching this episode. I did not understand the point at all of why he had to be in this relationship for a year. What info is being gathered that's somehow going to help him with future relationships? I mean, clearly, if you're that miserable with someone and with each other, it wasn't just him. She was miserable with him. And I loved it whenever she got real snippy, like they were at that like party or that gathering, whatever it was called, with all the other couples. And they're showing that one couple that was like the success story. And he's over there eating, and he eats that garlic dip. And she got real snippy, and she's like, oh, garlic, thanks for that. And then he takes another big dip of it.
Yeah, big old scoop.
That was like a big F you, right there.
And it's, I mean, you see those two together, and like what I see, and again, this is kind of past experiences, like people that are married that just should not be married is really what I saw with that. It's like people who know that this relationship's doomed, but they stick to it because they feel like, well, in this instance, they kind of have to, but even in like some just not very good marriages, like that's the same thing. It's like, I'm not happy. You're not happy. Like, why are we doing this to each other kind of thing?
They certainly didn't seem like a couple that had been in a relationship for a year or less as you saw it progress, but they were not fully in the relationship for a year yet. And it's like, wow, you guys act like you've been married for 15 years.
Yeah. Oh, and like so I love the cut scene between those two. So like her second date is that like very attractive dude. And like their sexual passion is like really intense, really sexy.
Yeah.
And then his is like, she's like, was it tiramisu or chicken terra? What did he eat? He ate some chicken terra something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And basically it's like, this is gross. Like, nope, you just got to do it from behind. And then she's kind of like backseat driving it. Mm-hmm. Like, no, more side to side. Like you're just in and out, in and out. And it's just like, this is miserable. Like, I don't even want to do this anymore.
Yeah, that was a pretty awful experience. And if that's the first time, can you imagine what it was like? Or was there even anything happening after that point? Because what's the point? Let's just get through this year, clearly is what it seemed like to me. Why would you even continue to even try at that point? But it was really interesting because, Amy's guy, like we saw his experience, and clearly that was awful from the minute they laid eyes on each other. Like he seemed like to go into the experience like, okay, here's another date. And he seemed, not into it, but he was at least looking like he was going to try. And she's automatically like, ugh, just totally not into it. And, but then you saw Amy with her date, the next guy, and she was totally into him. His looks, they seemed to enjoy each other, had some nice little banter. When they were intimate, they seemed to be into each other. Then, obviously things were happening for them, whereas poor Frank, things were not quite happening for him. And but then you start to see, even though the flip side of things, that even though they were like into each other, she was starting to get annoyed by the little things like, after he would drink something. And that, I can see where that's totally annoying, but that's kind of what happens is, you're kind of into someone, but it's not really the person you want to be with. And so, or you're not as into that person as maybe what you initially were. And those little things that maybe were cute at first are like super annoying later and really, pick at you. And then I thought it was interesting, like, and then there were lots of other dates because we saw a montage, like they finally got through those long-term relationships. They were both clearly happy to be out of them. No worries about, anything worthwhile being experienced out of those. And we got to see a really cool montage of some of her other dates. We got to see a little bit of conversation and things happening. And then we had like the montage of the different people that you saw, like in and out of her bed. And I really liked that she was able to play with someone of the same sex, but why didn't Frank? Frank didn't get a fella. You didn't see him. Maybe he was, we just didn't see it.
Maybe. I mean, you didn't really see him with too many people. It was just really like like maybe 3 or 4 at the most.
Yeah, you definitely got more of Amy's. I think a little bit more insight into her experience versus his, and clearly, I think that was a really good montage to kind of show maybe how empty it was for her because she wasn't with anybody that she
Yeah.
really wanted to be, and I think it just kind of showed the emptiness that she was feeling, with these other people, regardless of how long she was with them. That's not who she wanted to be with. So that was my number 3, is just all the other dates and experiences that they had outside of each other.
I like that. One theory I kind of have with like why we saw her with more people than him.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if in this specific situation, like in this specific simulation, this one of the 1,000 guys are, and maybe it's just me, I don't know, but it seems like guys are more shallow when it comes to like female experiences. So like like whenever you talk with somebody, you're like, there's always the question of like, well, how many people have you been with? And I wonder if in this simulation was like, okay, even if she's been like in a lot more experiences than him, like even some like that are can be considered a little bit more wild, like at least in our Midwestern thoughts, her with a woman, like who, what, how does that happen? But like you wonder if like is he still okay with that to still be with her because of the person she is? And so in this simulation was like, maybe there's another simulation where she's more of a prude, or she's a little bit more shallow, not shallow, a little bit more shy, not as like open as she is in this one. Like, does he still go for that version of her? And trying to calculate, like, is he really gonna like? Are these two really gonna break the rules, no matter what the outside tests are that they see that they go through?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
It does. I'm trying. I was just processing. There's so much that could be broken down. So good. I like that. I do like that. Okay. So, well, I know you mentioned that kind of went into your number 3 a little bit about what I was saying about that girl. Did you say everything that you want to say, or did you have more that you want to say about your number 3?
No, yeah. So for my number 3 is really just Frank's second relationship, and like to me, it kind of felt like a bad marriage, like like two people that were together that shouldn't be.
Yes.
I kind of like one of the other things, like staying in a relationship when you know it's not right for either one of you, but you just do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the line that stuck with me was when he's talking to the coach, and he's like basically like, I don't understand why I had to be in this relationship because, basically what I've learned what it's like to be stuck and you think you can't get out, but both of you, wait, no, sorry. That's the other way I kind of related to it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like being stuck and you think you can't get out, but both of you know it's wrong. What did he say? He said something to the effect of like what I've learned.
That was a good line. Dang, what was that?
I got it
Remember?
written down.
I know. Dig, Shawn, dig. Because I don't have that
Oh, here
written
it is.
down.
So basically, when he's talking to the coach, he's like, well, I've learned what it's like to cohabit with somebody I despise.
Yes.
And, that's one of those things that it's like, I don't know how many people have been through those kinds of relationships. Unfortunately, I have.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel trapped. It's like at some point, at least in this world, he knows I have a year. I just got to make it through a year and then I can move on. But, in our world, and that's why this system seemed kind of nice, is because, like in our world, like if you make that mistake and you're like I've had that experience where I'm like, I'm going to be unhappy for the rest of my life. Like you have that realization when you get married at an age that you probably shouldn't. And you're like, fuck, like I signed up for this. So I guess that's what I have to do.
Right. And maybe, as he's questioning it like the whole time that it's happening, like, why do I have to keep doing this? What lesson am I learning? And then, like you said, at the end, he says, well, I learned what it's like to cohabitate with someone I despise. Do you think that experience makes him, like gives you a new appreciation for that person that you do want to be with, and to maybe, not take that person for granted and realize how bad it could be? Or could it mean, that you don't have to be in a relationship with someone that you don't want to be in, or you don't have to be trapped, or I don't know. It seems like there was a lesson to be learned out of that, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's multiple things. I think a lot of times, like just like from those experiences, you can kind of understand. It's like, okay, so like relationships aren't just one way. And if I'm not happy, like I don't like obviously like there's work that goes into relationships. Like no relationship's like easy, but if you shouldn't like I relate it back to like high school. Like I would date girls and I would feel like I can't break up with them because I don't want to hurt them. And there's a great Mike Birbiglia is an amazing comedian, and he does like a great like one man show, almost comedy shows. And one of them he talks about a girl he broke up with, and they both wanted to break up with each other. Like they weren't happy. And it's like, well, why? He goes back years later. He's like, why did we like stick together so long? And she was like, I just didn't want to hurt you. And it's one of those things. It's like, I'm willing to be in this shitty relationship because I don't want to hurt the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in this, like you're able to get away with it, but you see those petty things like start to come to fruition or come to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just oh man, that relationship like spoke to me in so many ways that like, and like you were saying earlier, it's like I think it does make you appreciate what you can have and willing to work harder for those things, because it's like, okay, well, I know my feelings for like my wife now are like completely legit. Like I'm not with her just because I don't want to make her not happy. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to make her happy because I really care for her. And that's kind of like his thing with Amy is like, he's like, this is the girl I want to be with. Like I've seen what's out there, and even though this was the first girl I ever dated in this thing, I know she's the one. And I guess it kind of goes back to maybe like, and that's maybe a bigger question for this episode is like, do you ever really know like who's the one? Because I've always heard people say it's like, well, maybe I don't know. I always find that as very cliche, but
Yeah.
sometimes I guess you do know.
I think sometimes you can know. And I think when that's just gonna, people are just gonna think, oh God, you're worthless because you just believe in all this hopeless romantic stuff. But I don't know if I believe that there's like a soulmate type of thing. I don't know that I believe that so much, but I think that I believe in instant chemistry. I believe in an instant connection with someone. And I can believe that when you can meet someone that without a doubt that, that this can happen. I've had similar experience when they had that first, I guess you'd consider it like a blind date, because you don't even know for sure, confirm the identity of the person until they literally like get right there. So
Yeah.
it's essentially like a blind date. But I've had an experience like that before, where you meet and you're pleased, with what you see, and then when you start talking, you're pleased with the the personality and the banter, and it just feels right. I've had that. So it exists, people. I'm cynical, and if I believe in it, you can too. So
Well, I think it all comes to not forcing it too, and that's what you saw with Amy and Frank.
yeah, it's
They never
natural.
forced that. Yeah, it was very natural, and um, not to keep talking about me and my wife, but that's kind of how it felt with us. Like,
No, we want to hear it, Shawn. Keep going on about you and your wife. It's so sweet.
well, like any other relationship I've been in, I always felt like it was again, it felt like it was forced, just because it's like, okay, we're together, so we might as well just be together, I guess, because what else is there at this time? But with me and Tiffany, it's just more of we're just we're together because we love being together. Now we fight, we get on each other's nerves at time, but
Don't ruin it,
it's not
Shawn. Don't ruin
it's
it.
not well, it's not like the difference is it kind of goes back to Frank and his second girl is like, his second relationship is I could see like in that house, like she would do things that he hated, even though she didn't need to. Like she would know that this would make him mad, and she would do it anyway,
Yeah.
just to get a fight going. But like when me and my wife fight about something, like 10 minutes later, like, okay, that was stupid. Why'd we fight about that? And we don't hold. I think it's like in relationships like Frank had with his second relationship, those are where you hold grudges because you really don't care for the person. Whereas, like the relationship I'm in now, like Frank and Amy, they don't hold grudges. They just kind of react to, they work together to get through whatever thing is making them upset. Like I'm not upset at you. I'm upset at the current situation,
Right.
which is, I think like that's probably like the strongest bond you can have with somebody is when things like that work well.
Right. That was beautiful. I don't know if I can keep going. Um, that was really good. Was that all of your number 3? Anything else you want to
yeah,
say?
that's all my number 3. Like I said, it kind of hit home a little bit on that, but and that's why I
Yeah.
love this episode. God, yeah, because I went through a really shitty marriage, and it was very much kind of that Frank's second one. And as I'm watching
Oh
that,
my
like
God.
I texted my buddy Rich. I'm like, fuck, have you seen Hang the DJ yet? I'm like, this is fucking hitting way too close to home. Because I was really, I mean, it's Black Mirror, so I'm like, he's gonna end up like not with the girl, right? Because this is Black Mirror. Frank's gonna end up like in a shitty relationship or something.
Right. You keep waiting for that to happen because it's Black
Yeah.
Mirror.
I mean, I don't know. I complain a lot about where I am in life sometimes, but it's like if I come back to like, I've won the lottery when it comes to the woman that decided to marry me, I feel like, that's what Frank is in this simulation. Is like this is winning the lottery.
Yeah.
So again, that's just kind of why like I probably over romanticize this episode, but
No.
it's just Charlie Brooker fucking nailed this episode in my, if he wrote it for anybody, he wrote it for me.
I'll share that with you. You don't get it all to yourself. You have to share, damn it. We're co-hosts. No, I totally get, and please do not get me started on bad relationships. I've been around way longer than you, which means I've had way more than you. No, it's good. It's fine. This is not a competition. But no.
But yeah, that was just my number 3 is kind of Frank's second relationship.
Gosh, we could go on and on about how awful that girl was. At least he tried to be nice and, get through it. And she was just absolutely despicable the whole time. I think we could spend so much time on her and their relationship in general. But we don't. I think we've given her enough time. Really good number 3. So my number 2 is just the question. It's kind of short because I would like to almost hear more from you than what I have to say. But my question is, what is better? So is it like better having your mate chosen for you, like through this process, or a similar process? Because this was kind of like, there was a whole bunch of things I think kind of blended with how this simulation, or what we found out to be a simulation, didn't know it at the time, was like we mentioned. It's similar to like having a blind date, very similar to like having an arranged marriage. Because even though these people weren't married, they were stuck in some long-term relationships. And
yeah, 9 months is nothing to, bat an eye about. Like, that's a long time.
If you're in a bad relationship, it is a long time. That year had to be the longest year of his life. But you know what? Like arranged marriages, some of those work out pretty well. I don't know if you've ever, I don't know anyone personally like in an arranged marriage, but I've found it really interesting, the idea. So I've like looked it up a little bit and read some things and saw some things about, arranged marriages. And, a lot of people end up pretty happy. And it's like, well, so is it really that bad? Or, but is it better to not have a choice and to have your choices made for you, or to let your emotions and your instinct drive you to who you are right for, and not some sort of either process or simulation or Big Brother, whatever it is that's driving all of this, because I didn't know still that this was a simulation until the very end. So I'm just thinking, well, why all these rules? Who says that this has to be how it is? Because I'm such a rule breaker, and I question everything that I'm like, why? Why does it have to be this way? Who says it has to be this way? What's going to happen if you say, no, fuck this, I'm out of here, you suck, you are a miserable human being, and I don't want to spend another damn minute with you, I am out of here? What happens?
First date, they bring you fish cakes. You're like, fuck this, I want pizza.
Yes. Screw this diet, I want some pizza. So what do you think? What do you think is better?
These are like, so again, my wife and I met, and I'll use this as another example with kind of, I guess it's the only thing I can do because it's off my experience. But, my wife and I met when I was a little bit older, like not super old, like 25, 26. So we had already kind of lived that like dating life kind of thing, high school, college. And I remember, us talking, it was either when we were engaged or after we got married. And it's like, it's like, how awesome would it have been for us to meet when we were like 16 and just, you and I were the only people that like we'd ever been with.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, and this is the reason I love my wife, is because she won't romanticize things like that. Like I say that, and you think like she'd be like, "Oh my God, yeah, wouldn't it be so great? Like you and I would have been high school like sweethearts." And she was realistic about it. She's like, "You know what? I don't, because I probably wouldn't have appreciated the kind of person you are.
Mm-hmm.
We would have dated, and I'd been like, well, there's like all guys have to be like this, right? So I'm just gonna try something else. Like you made me mad, or like it just like there's got to be greener grass, right?
Right."
And, you think about it's like back to high school Shawn. It's like, you know what? That probably would have been what I would have done too. I'd been like, okay, so this is great, but like, what else is there? I'm 16, I'm 17, I'm 21, I'm going off to college. Like, there's got to be something else out there, right? And with like the arranged marriages and stuff like that, you're kind of forced to. So like, you have to be like, okay, well, I'm forced to love this person.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you fall in love by osmosis or whatever because you have to. or you just aren't going to be happy together, or you're just going to kind of cohabitat with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I'm like I said, I kind of like the idea of like, choices and emotions coming into it, because, like with this, like, it almost seems like, the 3-day relationships you had are like one night stands. It's like, very much, drunken bender kind of things. Like you pick up a girl at a party and you guys kind of hit it off, and, you wake up next morning next to each other, and that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
But like with like, him seeing her across the room and being able to like fall in love from a distance and slowly fall in love, there's something pretty poetic about that, I think.
There absolutely is. So good answer is all I'll say. Good answer.
See,
But I think that was the questions that it kind of made you think of a little bit in here, because
oh, for sure,
isn't
yeah.
it nice to kind of sometimes give up the control a little bit?
I mean, it probably,
just a
I say it
little?
would make things easier, but like if you like, okay, I don't have to worry about picking my food, I don't have to worry about trying to find a date, because especially like you were saying earlier, like if you're shy, like finding a date is really tough. Like the dudes in high school and college that like get all the dates are the ones who are pretty much like Steve the D style guys, like just jerk faces. So I mean, to have this thing kind of like try to pair you up would work pretty well. And I wonder if the internet's helped with that, because
Yeah.
so, okay, back to when Tiff and I first decided to hang out, she invited me to a Jersey Shore party over Facebook. Now, if even if phones were around, I doubt she would have called me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, technology's kind of already kind of helping force the hand on a lot of these things, where people are
A little
kind
bit
of slowly
braver, bolder.
yeah, a little bit braver, kind of communicating over like social network and things like that, and kind of, putting their toe in the water without actually having to, make themselves vulnerable. So we kind of have that a little bit today, except, I don't know, that we know of. Facebook isn't specifically, saying, hey, so and so you should go on a date with yet. I'm sure that's coming, but
Yeah, who knows? We've seen so many of these things from Black Mirror that like actually happen. So maybe we'll all have date, or at least for the people who need it, I guess, have these simulations. Interesting. Awesome. Well, what is your number 2?
all right. So my number 2, I didn't pick this up until my second watch, but
Mhm.
I thought it was really interesting. It almost seemed like they had different styles of relationships, like they're very realistic examples. And I give you, and we've kind of talked about some of them already. You had one, you had the bad marriage.
Mhm.
You had Amy and Frank's first encounter, just kind of like like a crossing paths encounter where you're like, huh, like that. There's something to that person.
Yep.
There's the one night stands where she was with the guys for about 36 hours. There was the marriage one where he seemed like he was in a bad marriage. There was her with the 9 months, like a long, like okay relationship, but it's the one like the dude's too dumb, I know this isn't going anywhere relationship.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until my second time that I caught this, and I'm kind of curious what you think. So when Amy and Frank were together for the second time,
Mm-hmm.
they said, okay, we're not going to look at this time at all. We're not going to look at the time that we have like left, which to me is very much kind of like a couple that, is young, and, they're like, we have the world in front of us. We have like this, we have years ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
But he made the mistake of looking at his coach, and the relationship ended abruptly.
Yeah.
And to me, that really signifies like, the loss of somebody to like a tragic event, like, some kind of health issues or an accident or something like that, where you have this person in your life, you're expecting to be with them for infinite amount of time. Like at this point, there's nobody telling them they can't be together. There's no expiration date. But now all of a sudden it ends. It's done and it's over, and you're not with that person anymore. And they're not even like around in your life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of hit home when Frank was with that other girl who, he's sitting there talking about Amy this whole time while she's, in on him.
Yeah.
And, they just basically go right into it. And it's kind of more of I don't know if I'd say morbid or darker, like romantic moment, but as they're together, him and this other girl, like they're talking about these two people. And like, to me, this feels more like a moment where like these two people have lost somebody like to a tragic event. Like, my wife died in a car accident, your husband, died of some disease, and we're just together because like we're sad and lonely, and what else is there to do?
Mm-hmm.
And they both have this moment where like they're being intimate with each other, but they're not. And he's like, do you care if I think about her? And she just is like, well, as long as I can think about him. And like it's romantically sad. Like it's these two people who are being just so disassociated with each other, like these people they're with,
Uh-huh.
that they're longing for this people that aren't there. And to me, it just seemed like that situation when two people had lost somebody prematurely, and they just kind of end up tripping over each other and just kind of being together because, like, okay, there's nothing else to be with right at this moment. You're another human being, and I'm a human being. Like, I'm not getting any satisfaction out of this relationship at this moment.
I think
Kind of using each other almost.
I think that was probably one of their most honest moments of their entire relationship. I mean, it is kind of dark and it's kind of sad to think that that's how they're going to try and get through this relationship, is by, at least in an intimate moment, pretend that the person they're with is someone else. But I feel like that's probably what you kind of do in long-term miserable relationships, right? I mean,
Well, and even in that one, it was a different girl. Like, it wasn't the chick that was awful to him.
Oh, yep, that's right. Yeah. I'm stuck on that one girl.
Oh yeah, fuck that chick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that just, again, it just seemed like, and so you kind of like all these ones kind of were like right up Front Street. Like they're like, okay, one night stand, bad marriage, bad long-term relationship, yada yada yada. And then that one just kind of stood out. I was like, oh shit, like he's like, when he was crying at the end of the bed,
Yeah.
and like that's like, he's like, oh well, you need to leave the premises now. And he's like, can't I just be angry? And to me, that felt like just somebody that lost somebody prematurely. Like like if you lost your significant other to an accident, you'd be like just at the bottomest level you could be, especially when it was like a true love like Frank and Amy had. So I thought that was kind of interesting. For my number two is these different kind of relationships and different kind of scenarios that came out with the coach and what they went through.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that they probably learned a lot more than what they were realizing. That's for sure. Going through these different simulations and different dating scenarios or long-term relationship scenarios, however long that they're with these people, that you may not realize it at the time, but you are getting something out of it, even if it's not positive. I feel like there's always a lesson to be learned. I always try to I question things too, like, what the hell is the point of that? And, you try to find a lesson and figure out, at least get something, so it doesn't feel like your time was wasted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
So the very good number two, lesson to be learned always. Okay. So for my number one, and it has to be number one, this is the one time I'm going to claim an actual number one is a number one. And that was the end. I love how they get back together. Like they're going to do their goodbye, and they decide to rebel. And because it totally suits my rebellious spirit, like I said, I question authority. I always ask the question why. I'm never satisfied with just any given answer. Most of the time, I want to know why. Why does it have to be this way? Who says, and who makes the rules, and why do I have to follow them? To a certain extent, of course. I'm not out there breaking the law every day. Don't worry. I go over the speed limit a little, and that's about it. But I mean, I'm always questioning why. But why do things have to be that way? Why can't we think outside the box a little bit? I know some people hate that expression, so sorry. But I loved so many things about how they decided to be together and against the odds. They were fighting against, like you said, they had these, I don't know what they were called, but those guards or whomever that was, going to try to stop them from getting away. I love how she put her hand up to like that taser thing. I thought, damn, that was brave. I don't know if I'd be willing to do that or not, to go that far. They go and they climb the wall, to get out of the way. It reminded me so much of like the wall from Game of Thrones. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it's the great Northern Wall that they're climbing. And I thought, I don't know if I could do that. This is
where the wildlings came from.
This is what happened. It would have been so much easier had they had a ladder like that, right? I definitely know I probably wouldn't be climbing that ladder. I'd say, look, I want to be with you and all, but is there a doorway that we can get through? Because I don't do heights. At all.
Oh, and that was like no like safety net either.
No, there's nothing around you to catch you. You're not on any kind of bungee thing happening here. There's no safety harness or anything. You are just on these metal bracket thingies. No way. So I'd definitely be questioning how badly I want to be with this person if I got to climb that thing. But I loved the end so much. I loved the 99.8% match reference
Yes.
in comparison to the 998 times out of the 1,000 in that simulation that they kept choosing each other and bucking the system and rebelling against the system. And it was so sweet because it was like I'd live 1,000 lifetimes and still choose you to spend with.
99.8% of the time.
Yes, 99.8% of the time I would always choose you. And I am such a hopeless romantic. I know I kind of mentioned it already. Despite the huge cynic in me, that's always like doubting and questioning all the time, I am still a true hopeless romantic. And it just really spoke to me because, like I said, I've had that with someone, and I think with that someone I would do 998 times out of 1,000. So it was so sweet. I think I might have teared up a little bit, and I thought that it was so great with this episode. It was so uplifting, and I loved the end when they like you were talking about. That look across the room, as they both are looking at their dating apps and they see 99.8 match and they see each other's pictures and they look across the room and it's just like, oh, you went through all this to get to here. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was well written. I thought it was uplifting. I thought it was hopeful. And, I just loved it. I just gushed and gushed and gushed about this episode and was like asking so many people, have you seen this one yet? I thought it was a beautiful episode and definitely a hopeful light in what we needed in a kind of a dark series or season anyway so far. So that's my number one. I could go on and on, and I'll probably just end up crying about it or something. So I'll stop.
Well, that's well stated. I mean, that just kind of my number one was just kind of like, how do you know the perfect match? Like you're 99.8%. Like, with this, and you're kind of asking too, like if we knew like. And a lot of times, like, questions Black Mirror's like, were these things sentient? Like, did they was it actually just a program, or did they actually like feel and everything like we know Black Mirror is to typically happens?
Mm-hmm.
They kind of use these simulations to go through all these types of relationships to kind of help, like the people looking at this, like, oh, okay, there's this dude here, and really like the story of their relationship, like the beginning of that story, like is the end of this. So there's another story going on with like a real life couple.
Mm-hmm.
Like you kind of wonder like, where are they 20 years from now?
Yeah.
Did they realize what their 998% simulations went through just to make this happen?
Exactly.
But no, I think your number one kind of tied real well into my number one.
Feel free to elaborate if you have more to add, because I kept it pretty short and sweet because, like I said, I could go on and on about the romanticism and the symbolism and how and relate to it in some way, but it'll just probably bring me to tears. I'm a little emotional today, so I probably don't need to go on and on.
I think I got mopey enough, so I think I'm probably ready for some notes.
It was refreshing, Shawn. Nobody's going to give you shit. Don't worry about it.
This is an episode that, like, I could see flipping on, like, I don't like Valentine's Day, and my wife doesn't either. But
I don't either.
This is, like, one of those, like, Valentine's Day type movies, like, or just a time where it's, like, I really feel like I just want to get in the mood of where I just want to hold each other.
Yeah.
This is the thing I would flip on.
Yeah.
And really, like, if Tiffany and I, if she listens to this, now she has some, like, material. But, like, if we're ever fighting, like, if she flips this on, I'm going to be like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. You're my 99.8%. I'll take out the trash.
Oh, my gosh, that's funny. It's really good. I'm glad to hear I'm not the only person that doesn't care for Valentine's Day.
I hate it.
I don't like it. I mean, I think that the sentiment kind of behind it is sweet to have a sweetheart's kind of day, but I think that you should have more than just one day a year dedicated to your sweetheart or to show someone that you love them or appreciate them. I think you should do small romantic gestures for each other. It doesn't have to be every day, but more than just on Valentine's Day. And I don't dig it at all. Give me flowers on a random Tuesday. Don't give me flowers on Valentine's Day. Just bring home a single rose or just a single flower, a bunch of wildflowers or something that you picked on the side of the road, or write me a sweet note, sweet text. even something. Doesn't have to be. And I like it when it's random. I don't like it when you're told to do it because it feels like it's not deep and meaningful. So thank you. I feel like I get weird looks whenever I'm like, oh, Valentine's Day, whatever, you know.
So one thing, so if there's anybody out there that's in relationships, one thing Tiffany and I have been doing lately, and it's been really nice, is because like sometimes when you text again, you just kind of fall into the minutia of like, you know, hey, can you pick up diapers on the way home? Hey,
Yeah,
did you
we're out of
remember
milk.
toilet paper? Yeah. So what we did, because she just found it through like just some ideas like how to strengthen your marriage, like good things to do. We created an email address that's just for like sweet texts or sweet pictures or sweet like, you know, one line things. So it's something that, you know, we just go to whenever we feel like, you know, sending something sweet or sending like a picture we found that's cute or articles that we find are interesting, and use that just for that. Like it's not for chores, it's not for, you know, any kind of like things that you just normally text for. It's more set for things like that. And it's been pretty cool for both of us to have that, I think. So if anybody's out there that wants to try that out, you know, I wasn't like super excited about it because I worried it'd be one of those things we just do for a week and then stop.
It
But
would
we've been
burn
doing it for
out,
about a
yeah.
month. Yeah, exactly. Or feel not genuine, but
Right.
it feels more genuine than, you know, a text, you know, throughout the day when it's like, oh, I'm, you know, busy at work. Oh, that's a cute picture, but I've got 10 other things going on. Whereas the email, I kind of like, oh, hey, I've got like a down 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to take a look at this. And it's like, oh, that's, you know, super sweet.
Oh, I think that's a really good idea because it's kind of like you're keeping your business and your personal email separate.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like,
And
and
it's
not
worked out
that
pretty
your
well.
emails to each other or text to each other's business, but like you said, it can get pretty mundane and pretty just day to day. Like you said, hey, I'm going to the store. Do you need anything? Oh yeah, we're out of diapers. You know, that's not, you know, that's just that everyday stuff, and that's okay. You have to have that kind of communication, you know, and it happens, and we're all definitely there. It's necessary because if you know, hey, you don't know that. If she found out you went to the store and didn't tell her and you were out of diapers and then you come home and she's like, oh, why didn't
yeah.
you freaking tell me? You could have got diapers. So, hey, it's necessary, folks, and we get that. But that's super sweet. It kind of keeps that separate, and you have those sweet moments. It's separate from you don't have the don't forget the diapers text right above the I really missed you today, sweetheart, or I really want to hold your hand when I
Exactly,
get home or something.
Here's a cute article about how you're like the most amazing wife ever next to the picture of the kid throwing up on the floor.
Well, look what happened this morning or something. And then, yeah, I love you so much, honey. And the next text is kind of. I think that is a wonderful idea, and I think would really help the couples that are in, you know, maybe not the first year that you've been together, but you know, you've been married a little bit, you have a child, you both, you know, if you have the jobs and just those things get intermingled, it's nice to have something a little bit separate, to have those sweet moments to each other. That's nice. Gosh, we should all be like you. Of course, I need to find someone first, but you know, I will model after that. You've inspired me, Shawn, as I'm sure you've inspired lots of others that are listening.
David Harbour's looking for a date to that wedding, so.
Well, have you seen me tweet about it already? I'm putting it out there. I said I have a couple cute, really black, you know, cute black dresses that are perfect for weddings. I have great shoes. I can do hair and makeup like no other, and I can proofread a speech because he's going to have to give a speech, and I'm a good proofreader. And I help generate really great ideas, so I can help you write that speech and help you officiate.
You got to send him this episode of our podcast. Be like, David Harbour, I'm pretty sure you just passed the coach for me. You're my 99.8%.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll have to send it out. I'm not giving up. I've already sent out a couple tweets to be like, you know, hey, hashtag wedding date. You know, I look really cute in those dresses, and I have nowhere else to wear them. I'm a fun girl. I'm a fun date. So. Hook me up, David Harbour. Let's make this happen. If anybody's listening, make it happen. Help a girl out. That's really awesome. I think that's super awesome of you and your wife that you guys do that. Like you said, all relationships take work. It's so easy to take that person for granted, and praise you two for acknowledging that and taking steps to keep things fresh and light between you guys. I think that's wonderful. So I'm going to fess up. pretty much everything that I wanted to say, because like I said, I could go on all day long about how romantic all of this was for me, and I'm not a chick flick kind of girl or any of that stuff, but this really hit home for me too, like it did for you. So I don't have any notes, but I want to hear your notes. I think we have a lot more to talk about probably.
Yep, I just got a couple quick notes. So we kind of mentioned a little bit, but the dude that was eyeing all the time after taking drinks. So again,
Yes.
we cut back to, he drinks and he does his or whatever, and then they start getting intimate, and you see like the scene of him under the covers and rocking her world, and you're like, okay, like this is why you're with this guy, because he's awesome. And then halfway through, as he's under the covers, he just goes,
What was that?
and I'm like, oh, dude, that is like,
who does that?
yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
That
I get it after taking a drink. I think sometimes we're all a little
yeah.
guilty of it, maybe not as consistently as him. But what was that in that moment? Come on. Really, in that moment. That takes you out of it. I'm sorry.
Oh, it did, and you saw it too. Like she did a great job in that scene where she's just kind of like she's like really into it, and then it's just like after that she's like, nope, like
Just roll over.
yep, just call it a night.
Done. Oh my gosh.
I thought it was really cool that because in Black Mirror it always seems like the go-to whenever they're in things is like, oh, it's a simulation. Seems like that's a lot of the episodes tend to fall back on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that when these two were talking at that gazebo, she's like, so what you're saying is we're in a simulation. I was like, oh, red herring. They're not in a simulation. I didn't even think they were. And, they kind of, took you on a little Scooby-Doo chase, and you find out that, yeah, okay, they are in a simulation.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of a cool detour.
Very good point. Yeah, that was a twist I didn't see coming. I didn't think of that at all, that's how it was going to end up.
Oh, I didn't either. Yeah, when they were escaping and then, like, the lights went out, I was like, oh, okay, like, maybe this is some kind of, like, everybody's acting, like a Truman Show type thing.
Oh, yeah. Good.
But then when like you saw the digitalization and all this, like the world kind of dissolving, I was like, oh, okay, they are in a simulation.
Yeah.
That's kind of clever.
It was good.
The last thing I had, I can't figure out what it meant, but whenever they skip things, like on water, it always skipped 4 times no matter what.
Oh, good connection. I don't think I picked up on it 4. I loved when she threw hers in the pool. Count to 4
yeah.
and across the pool it went.
Because she was asking him sometime when they were skipping rocks, she's like, have you ever had more than 4? And each time she chucked it was 4 times. I don't know what that means. So I didn't know if you knew maybe, but I'm definitely curious what the listeners think.
Yeah, everyone, if you've watched and because you know what, in my reading of, because I was looking up news and different things on the episode, I don't see that I ever, and maybe there's something on Reddit, because I don't go onto Reddit, and I know you do, Shawn, so maybe you can poke around out there because you're familiar with it and I'm not. I didn't see anything about the skipping and the number 4 or anything like that, but that is a really good point. Because then I didn't make the connection then that was any type of simulation. And I don't think that I did until, like you said, at the time that they were doing the digitization, and at the time when they were doing their little, talking about rebelling, or when they're, well, what's going to happen, if we do, she's like, do you remember anything before this?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
But I was like, well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a simulation. I mean, they could be in some sort of like Matrix-like type of thing or something,
The first time they did that, it threw me off because I thought she meant before they got back to the restaurant.
Right.
It's like I thought like they couldn't remember any of their dates, like any of their people. They could only remember each other. But that second time view, I'm like, oh, she means before they got here to this walled-in place.
Right. Yeah, I still didn't think it was quite what it ended up being, but I thought, oh, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes and seeing that maybe this isn't what you think it is. So they
And
just
light bulb moment. The only thing I could think of maybe that the 4 represented, it's season 4 and episode 4. Maybe that's just kind of a little Easter egg there. I don't know.
Shawn,
that seems...
You're a freaking genius. I like it.
If that's what it is, that's kind of like not as satisfying, but I'll take it.
I'll take it, and I'm okay with it. If you find out, you better tell me. And listeners,
will do.
If you guys, I'm gonna go see if I can find anything myself. But if I go down into the Reddit world, into the deep darkness of Reddit world, I'll never get out. Those people suck you in. No offense to Reddit
Hours of my
people.
life.
I'm good. It's just it's like like Reddit is like its own internet. It's like once you get into the internet, you think I'm just going to go look this thing up for 5 minutes and I'm out of here. And at 3 a.m. you're watching cat videos. It's like you get swept in and you don't know how the hell you ended up there. And that's what I feel like when I go into Reddit. It's a wonderful place, but I feel like it sucks me in, and I don't know how I ended up there, and where I got to where I usually end up, which is some weird place that I never thought I'd be. So yeah, if anyone's made those connections, I'd love to hear it on that 4. But I like it. I'll take yours. I'm a little bit more easily satisfied, Shawn. I'll take it. Okay, perfect. Is that all your notes?
That's all the notes I have.
Awesome. I like it. Okay, well, now we're going to go. We got a little bit of news. There wasn't too much on this episode. I was really kind of disappointed because after I watched this episode, I was like, oh, now I must go read everything about this episode. Because when I love something, I want to know everything there is to know about it. And shockingly, there just wasn't a whole lot out there about this. So we only have a couple of news items. I'll go ahead and get us started since I started our number 5 or our top 5. First article that we have is from The Hollywood Reporter. So, what if there was a Spotify for dating? That was the question Charlie Brooker asked himself when thinking up one of the breakout episodes from the recent 4th season of Black Mirror, Hang the DJ. What if there was a service that was a bit like Spotify for dates, Brooker asks? It could generate a playlist of relationships. It would tell you who you were going to be going out with next and for how long. The system is learning from your reaction to being paired with all these different types of people. Once it's figured it's learned enough about you, it will then pair you up with the ultimate soulmate. The online dating episode was described by Brooker's partner, executive producer Annabelle Jones, as Black Mirror's first rom-com, which explained its romantic tropes and surprise ending. Black Mirror episodes always have a twist, but Brooker and Jones remained unpredictable with the well-received rebellious love story. In a way, Hang the DJ is a world in which all your romantic worries are kind of taken care of, says Brooker. It's like a codified version of real life.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if I'd call this a rom-com, though. It's more of like a romantic drama, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know if it would quite qualify as a rom-com. I agree with what you say on that. It did have some cute, funny moments, like a rom-com, but it wasn't. I wouldn't categorize it as a comedy. More dramatic.
Wasn't like, oh no, I lost your dog.
Ho, ho, ho.
What will I ever do?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't quite that far. But I think as far as the Black Mirror world is as far as it's going to ever get as a rom-com, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Compared to most, this is a rom-com.
Yeah, definitely for Black Mirror. But I thought it was really great, and I loved hearing what he had to say about it himself. To kind of see what his inspiration was and what his thought process was. So I thought that was really interesting.
So from Wikipedia, according to Annabelle Jones, the series co-creator, Hang the DJ was intended to reflect on the state of dating in this present day and the general sense of loneliness.
One.
Oh, okay, thank you. One challenge with the episode was to keep the twist, that most of the events took place within a computer simulation, unclear until the very end, but still providing enough detail to have the viewer be aware that something was off with the setting. Another aspect that Brooker and his writers discussed was how long to have the semi-permanent relationship between Amy and Frank to last, which they ultimately settled on 5 years. Brooker said that when Frank discovers this time period, that it's not devastating news, but it's not forever. So he would think, okay, that's a reasonable amount of time for a serious relationship, a serious bond. I kind of go back. My theory on that is if they never looked, there wouldn't be a time.
I think that's pretty reasonable because look, don't you? I mean, when you get with someone, you don't know how long you're going to be together. Is it going to be 12 hours, 36 hours, a year, 9 months, 5 years? Is it going to be forever? I think if you're really into that person, you probably think, oh, this is going to be forever. But don't you think that you act so we don't know because in real life we don't know. We don't have these simulations to tell us an expiration date. But don't you think that would make you act differently if you did know? Like if you knew that this relationship that you're in is only going to last 1 year, that you're going to act differently not knowing the expiration date?
I mean, if you know it's going to be just 3 days, you're going to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to tell you my deepest emotional thoughts. Like it seemed like in this universe too, it's like, let's just see how much sex we can have. That's
Right.
what we'll do for 3 days.
Like you're not going to try to make a connection with anyone or get to take the time to know someone if you know it's only going to last 36 hours. You're not going to, like you said, you're not going to spill your deepest, darkest secrets. It's going to be really superficial. It's not going to be genuine. And that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a one night stand or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with those little short relationships or something like that. I'm not saying that there is, and if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. But I think that if you know that it's only going to last 3 days, you're probably not going to get too deep with a person. It's going to be really superficial. Oh, no. It's going to be, not really fake maybe, but just not really genuine. And versus if you think you're going to be with someone long term, where you probably would try to connect, like make more of a connection with someone. So I think that's why the time changed for him whenever he did look, because maybe this could have been forever, but because he looked, it changed to 5 years, and then it kept going down.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's why, because it's like, well, you couldn't wait. Like you guys agreed to waiting. You kind of cheated a little bit and looked, and so therefore your relationship isn't going to last as long. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I think that's a good point.
Anyway, that's just my rambling thoughts. I've had a little bit of wine, so I'm rambling right now. So sorry, folks. So anyway, now we're at one of my most favorite parts, is what you guys thought about this episode. I didn't read too hard because I love getting these reactions in a genuine manner, so I'm real anxious to hear what you guys thought about this episode. So I'll start off. The first one we have is from Erica Land. She says, I really enjoyed this episode. Short and sweet.
Paige Allen said, maybe the best this season. Love having the one episode that doesn't end in a depressing way. The whole episode, I was rooting for them the whole time, and feeling his pain during that year relationship was with the worst person on earth. The end blew me away. Honestly, did not see that twist coming, and the whole ending after it had my jaw dropped, and then it slowly formed into a huge smile. Perfection. I agree, Paige.
I agree, Paige. Good thoughts. Onwin Carver Holtzhausen. I'm so sorry, Onwin, if I said that wrong. And I wish I could say this in your lovely accent, but I'm going to butcher it, so I will refrain. She says, loved it. I really liked their chemistry, and that every single thing that was annoying or hard or heartbreaking was just the same as relationships in the real world. I love how this show doesn't assume viewers are stupid and need everything laid out for them. We get to piece it together slowly as each episode reveals its own rules and parameters. I loved the sequence at the end when you realize we had watched just one of 1,000 simulations. What a delightful treat amongst all the darkness. Oh, Onwin.
Great points.
Great points. You said it beautifully. Thank you.
Laura Willie Swink says, I love this one so much. A much needed and rare uplifting Black Mirror episode after last week's dark and depressing Crocodile. I've never experienced the virtual dating scene because I've been married forever with her 99.8. She wrote that in there.
Yep.
But the concept of a machine knowing better than ourselves who our best match in was both laughable and incredibly frightening. I love seeing Frank and Amy's journey through painful and meaningless relationships just to come around to each other again. The nearest Black Mirror will probably ever get to a rom-com. The end had me applauding for the two of them and their defiance of their cyber dating overlords. My one question is, do you think Frank and Amy in the real world were in a different time? The titular Smith song playing in the bar and Frank and Amy's dress seemed to be set in the early 80s.
Good question.
Well, I mean, everything does come back, and I think the 80s is probably, I mean, we see with like Stranger Things, like that's making a comeback, so.
80s are coming back. Yeah, I did notice that it did seem, the environment was a little bit different. They both looked a little bit different. Maybe the music was just a throwback because it was a great song. That's something, Laura, you are my sister in music. We always have a great common ground with the music, so I agree with you. But I don't know. I think that's a really good question. I don't know, because I think with Black Mirror, you never know. So when some things seem futuristic, they're not quite as futuristic. So I think we saw with Archangel, like the technology was very advanced, like computers and tablets and the whole Archangel system, where they injected her, with this device and this microchip. That was very advanced. But when you looked at the houses, and you looked at the cars, it was like looking at it today. You know, the cars weren't these little self-driven cars. They didn't look advanced. The homes looked like the house that you'd see looking out at your house now in your neighborhood. The technology in the homes, besides the computers and tablets or whatever, didn't seem very advanced. So I think it's kind of hard to really say what time, you know, and how futuristic, because Archangel, I thought, could have been today or even years ago. So I don't know. That's interesting, though. Very good question.
Well, I think to her point about like a machine knowing better than themselves too, like it's actually not even the machine saying, like the machine's guessing it and saying like, oh, you should be married to this person.
Uh-huh.
But if each time with that specific person, you basically said, okay, well, that's who I'll end up with, that would get thrown out. The only time it really said like, this is yours is when there was that rebellion. It was 998 times out of 1,000 you rebelled.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of just like, you basically at like, no matter what, like you're saying, fuck the system to basically prove the system right, which I thought was really interesting.
I know. There's so many like things that you can take out of this episode. Not only was it just beautifully written and the characters were great, and I think the acting was really great, but just so many takeaways. I think you could probably watch this a couple more times and get something different out of it, you know? So good. Love you, Charlie Brooker. As if I didn't love you before. We have one from Twitter. This is from @CrazyHomebodyGirl. She says, I like that handle. She says, I liked it. The ending threw me off.
We got one from Instagram from SuFu74. Hi, guys. I really love this episode, especially since the last episode was so heavy and dark. Hang the DJ was so smart, on point, without giving away too much. Can't wait to hear your thoughts this week.
I hope you're listening right now so you can hear our thoughts. And and thank you so much for yours. I love how everyone has continuously given us some really great feedback. I think everything that everyone says is really smart. We have so many smart listeners that I love how you guys make me think and question a little bit more and make us think a little bit harder about the episodes and give us good points that we may not have thought about, and drive us in different ways. So thank you all so much for writing in and taking the time, because it's easy just to kind of listen to a podcast and like it, but it's another step and shows us the love when you guys take the extra time to write us. So thank you guys so much. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Okay. What do we got for next week, Shawn?
All right, so next week we'll be covering the 5th episode from Season 4 of Black Mirror titled Metalhead. This is futurist. My prediction is this is a futuristic metal battle of the bands. That's what's going to be.
You know what? That's right up my alley, because that was my 90s, baby. Oh, so as always, we're really excited for you to look into the Black Mirror with us. And until then, you can follow us on Twitter @StrangeTcast.
You can like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/StrangerTcast. And you can also check us out on Instagram at @Stranger_. You can also check us out on Instagram at Strange_Indeed_pod.
You can email us at StrangerThingsCastPod@gmail.com. And you can also find us on the TV Time app.
You can find Strange Indeed and a bunch of other great podcasts like the Westworld Cast at podcastica.com. Go out and leave a review for Strange Indeed or any of the other great Podcastica podcasts on Apple Podcasts.
There's a lot of good ones. Go check them out. And while you're at it, make sure to go check out Shawn on his other podcast, The Language of Bromance, that comes out every Sunday.
Inching so much closer to 200 episodes.
Oh my gosh. Champagne time. An excuse to drink.
All right, well, that's our show, episode 22, Hang the DJ.
Until next time, I'm Rima.
And I'm Shawn.
And Onwin Carver Holtzhausen is strange indeed.
How long we got? System set my parent day for tomorrow.
Yeah, me too.
Right. I don't want whoever the system reckons the one is, okay? I want you.
I want you.
Failure to comply with the system may result
You
in
can
banishment.
fuck off and all.
Can you remember where you were before you came here? You can't, can you?
No?
Me neither.
Why can't I think of that?
It's a test. Do you remember the first night that we were together? I mean, the first night. How did you feel?
Oh, I just felt safe, happy, comfortable. It felt right. It felt like something locked into place, you know, like we met before.
Like it happened before, and like it'll happen again. Like it's happened 1,000 times over and over again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Ever since we've met, this world has been toying with us. It's trying to keep us apart. It's a test, I swear it is. And the two of us rebelling together is something to do with passing it.
We gotta fuck it all off.
Exactly, we've just got to pop the whole thing off and go.
Yeah, over the wall.
Fight over it, no matter what's out there.
Okay.
So let's go.